Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Phillies show with Ruben Amaro Jr., Jim Salisbury. I am Todd Zolecki. The Phillies fellows just had an 8-2 homestand, but that is not why I'm excited. I'm excited, very excited, because we have a pretty sweet logo I want to talk about. If you're watching on YouTube, you just saw it kind of float across the screen. It's going to be everywhere now. I mean, you guys got to be pumped. This is pretty cool. I feel like we went from like a Banana Republic podcast to like a legitimate podcast. Now that we have a really awesome logo. What do you guys think?
Todd, you got some nice blue hair.
That's right. I look good. I love it. I think it's so cool. So I got to tell you a story. We got to give a shout out to Pat Kreitz. He works at Thought Tub, and he reached out after the first or second episode. And to be honest, like we threw this thing kind of together at the last minute. And my wife, Ryan, I said, I'm in a panic. I'm like, we got to get this thing up on Apple. We have to have a logo. And she's like, well, how are we going to do that? I said, I don't know. So my wife, with the 1-year-old hanging on her, bangs out this really simple, basic logo just to get us up on all these podcasts. Then Pat reaches out and he says, I'm a huge Phillies fan. Not only am I a huge Phillies fan, but I also am a fan of Phillies reporters and broadcasters. I love Ruben. I love Jim. I love you. I went to Penn State. I've dabbled in some graphic design. I've done some things. Would you be interested in me designing a logo for you? So I'm like, sure. I check out his website and I'm like, this dude is legit. If anybody's been down the peanut butter aisle at any supermarket and they've ever seen Justin's peanut butter, almond butter, peanut butter cups, this is the dude that designed it. And he said, I'm going to design you a logo. And I think it's just great. I think it's really cool. I love us in the bullpen car. It's got a retro feel. We're kind of retro. I think we're fun. It's got some fun vibes to it.
I dig it. I think if it's fat, kudos to Pat, man. This is really, really cool. I mean, I love the color scheme. I love the car, man. I mean, the bullpen car. Are you kidding me? It's so choice. I love it.
Yes.
Yes.
And I love the exhaust coming out the back.
Yeah.
Ruben is
Of course you would. Yeah.
We took the governor off the bullpen cart. Now we're motoring her along. So, anyway, I wanted to give a shout out to Pat. If you like the logo, let us know. If you like it enough, maybe we'll make some T-shirts at some point. That'd be kind of fun too, to be walking around with some Philly show T-shirts with us.
There's some sweet swag ideas too, man. I love it. Yeah.
Some sweet swag potentially down the road. So thank you, Pat. Again, Thought Tub. Check them out at thoughttub.com. Guys, let's jump into this just completed homestand. The Phillies go 8-2. I looked this up. Best Phillies homestand of 10 or more games since June of 2011. They went 9-2 on a homestand. Pretty impressive. They're 14-8. They didn't get to be 6 games over 500 last season until June 29th. 2 years ago, they didn't get to 6 over until July 8th. And here they are, they're 6 games over 500. You know, when you guys look back at this homestand, Jim, let's start with you. What kind of stands out to you? What kind,
Really, a bunch of stuff stands out. You mentioned 2011 homestand, and I guess the common denominator is starting pitching. Obviously, 2011, the rotation.
That's
That's right. Pretty good starting pitching on that team, and this, what did they put up, a 1.5 ERA in this series, in this homestand?
Yeah, 1.51 ERA in the homestand. Yes, sir. Yep.
The starters.
Yep. The starters.
And, I mean, you carried two times they carried no hitters deep. They got a lot of timely hitting. We saw Trey Turner really come alive. I mean, I think that really stood out. Kyle Schwarber. Look, I know people are going to say, well, it was the White Sox and the Rockies, and the White Sox are just brutal, and the Rockies are very bad. But there'll be tougher tests. There will be tougher tests, but you can only pass the one on your desk that day, or presented to you that day. So I think they passed it 8-2. They passed it obviously in flying colors. So to be what, five? What are they? 5 over 500 now? 6 over?
6. They're 14 and 8. Yep.
So I mean, goodbye slow start talk, right?
Yeah, no more slow start talk. And when you look at the when you start looking at what kind of schedule you have before the season starts, you look at some of these teams and you think to yourself, well, Colorado doesn't look like a real strong team. You got the White Sox coming in and they're rebuilding, so we got a chance to make some hay. But the reality of it is, I mean, you really have to play good baseball to do it. I mean, they're still major league teams. They're not, it's not chock full of talent either one of these teams, but to go back-to-back sweeps, I mean, that's almost impossible to do. You just don't do that very often. And I'm always, and you guys know this, but I'm always about the starting pitching. It was just dominant. I mean, they pounded the strike zone. They didn't walk people. They pitched. It wasn't like they were dominating with 100-mile-an-hour fastballs and 97-mile-an-hour cutters or sliders. They were pitching. Everybody in the rotation was pitching. Nola, Wheeler, Sanchez, Suarez was outstanding. I mean, Turnbull. I mean, all of them, and they pitched really, really well. And it's a really good sign for the team. You don't know how healthy they're going to be. You don't know how effective they're going to continue to be. They're going to face tougher teams here in Cincinnati coming up, and then they got to go to San Diego and LA. It's going to be a tough road trip. Right. But they did make some great hay. And I think they had contributions offensively from everybody. I mean, Alec Boehm had huge contributions. Even Harper had some base hits and some walks. Schwarber got on base. He had a couple of homers. There was just a lot of you talked about Turner. He's just red hot. But it bodes very, very well for this ball club because they got a chance to they had a chance to make some hay, and they did it.
Another little thing that jumped out at me real quick was their work in the first inning. Their first at bat. They fall down today and by 2 runs early. Nola gives up the 2, and they come right back with 3. It seems like they jumped out to so many early leads or retook the momentum immediately. Schwarber with the leadoff home run the other night. Mm-hmm. Their numbers in the first inning as a team. Schwarber's are incredible in the first inning, but as a team, they're in the top 3 or 4 in like every major offensive category in the first inning, and they're just getting to these early starts and kind of riding that. Have you noticed?
Yeah, no, I've definitely noticed that, and I think today it was a great example of it. To see them, Nola gives up that 2-run home run, and to see the Phillies come back and score 3, they got a little bit of a gift there on that double steal that kind of, but those are the things that kind of go your way, I guess, when you're playing well. But I think it's a team that you knew was going to score runs, and they show that they are going to score runs. And now, like Ruben said, they just have to kind of keep it going through the on this next upcoming road trip.
Yeah, you talked about the slug. How come they're not slugging? Was the first part. They really did not get enough. I honestly believe this, and we've talked about it plenty. I don't think they got enough reps, and now they got enough reps, and they're starting to swing the bats, and the slug is coming. I mean, these guys are just too good. Their talent is just too great, and it's nice to see them. If you're a Philly fan, it's nice to see them doing some serious damage. The other thing that I will talk about a little bit is their defense. Their infield defense has gotten better. Alec Boehm is playing a very good third base. He did have like 1 or 2 errors, but he's played very, very well defensively. He's gotten better and better. There's a lot of question about whether the guy could even play third base on an everyday basis on a championship caliber club, but he can do it. And he's gotten better and better. His confidence is rising, and he's becoming at least an adequate or average third baseman at this point. Trey Turner has improved a lot. I know he struggled quite a bit last year, and he's starting to secure the baseball better. And Stott's always been good. And you know what? Harper's learning. I mean, he made a lot of diving plays. He picked a couple of balls today in the game or in the game on Sunday. And I mean, he's starting to learn the position pretty well at first base. And then obviously you got Johan. You got Johan Rojas doing amazing things in center field. They're set up really nicely defensively, and that's been an impressive part of the sort of the transition and what they've done. Dave Dombrowski and Sam Fold and whoever else is in charge of sort of revamping that, because 2 or 3 years ago we were like, this defense can't get it done, and they're playing pretty darn well right now.
Well, I think you're seeing, the pitchers that we talked about, the starting pitcher, the 1.51 ERA. And I think just overall in the season, I think they have the second best ERA in baseball, Phillies starters, behind only the Red Sox. And a lot of that has to do with the defense. It's like Zach Wheeler last season. I think he could have been in a stronger position to win the Cy Young, or if he got a little bit better defense the first 2-3 months of the season. Speaking of Zach Wheeler, I was wondering, when it got to the 7th, 8th inning last night, we were sitting there going like, what is Rob Thompson thinking right now? Because I'm sure he was nervous, right? I mean, he said he was going to let him go to 120, but man, I wonder if he was going to let him finish that game if it got to that point.
And the night before as well, or was it Friday night?
Return
bowl. These guys carrying these deep no hitters, and it's early, it's chilly. You're monitoring pitch counts, especially on a guy like Turnbull, who's coming back. He's a couple of years removed from the surgery, especially on a guy like Wheeler, who, it's chilly, right? It's cold right now. They're pitching in kind of chilly weather. Well, you want Wheeler to pitch in chilly weather again in 6 months.
Right.
So
That's right.
You want them to, if you can nip and tuck and save a bullet or two. That's why today, Sunday, I had no problem with Rob getting Nola, with a sizable lead. I mean, hey, complete game. It's great and it's nice and we love them. We kind of at times long for the past when they were, they occurred with more regularity. But there's nothing wrong with saving a few bullets for the holy month, October.
Well, so Rob was saying that before the game and after the game. He's like, I'm dying to get some of these relievers some work because they haven't pitched in a few days. So after the game, I talked to Jeff Hoffman just for a few seconds. I said, out of curiosity, are you guys sitting in the bullpen after being worked so hard the first 12 games of the season, going, man, I could really, they're almost pitching too good right now because now we're not pitching. And he said, actually, we were kind of joking about it. Like, man, could we get some innings here, please? And then Jeff and I guess some of the other veterans told Ryan Kirkland, like, enjoy this while it lasts, because you don't know if it will happen again this season. Because at some point, we're going to be going, oh my gosh, could we please just get like a day or two in a row where we're not working our butts off? So they're enjoying it right now. They want to stay sharp, of course, but they enjoyed this little 10-day break they got.
No doubt. And in this day and age, you start talking about some of the bullpens and they're eating up almost 40 or 50% of the innings. And when you're doing that, you're putting so much heat on those guys. And that's why it's tougher to go back to back early, with guys. And why are you not going back to back? Well, because you haven't gotten your starters past the 5th inning. And so that's the beauty of the domino effect of what this means to these guys long term. If they can put a couple of these in a row, or 2 out of the 3 next starts for each one of these guys can get into the 6th and 7th inning consistently, boy, oh boy, does that save these guys later on.
Mm-hmm. They've done a very, very good job keeping their starters healthy over the last few years.
Yeah, and Paul Buchheit, who's a guy that came over from the Boston Red Sox. I mean, it's interesting what one of the very first things, Paul was over there when I was a coach. And one of the very first things that I wanted to do with my outfielders was to do long toss. And it was like the first time he had heard that from a coach in like the longest time with the outfielders. And he was like, thank God, Ruben, thank God I finally got somebody who wants to throw long toss. And it's like, Paul's got sort of that old school mentality that, you gotta take care of your arm by working your arm and building it. And I think that's sort of, his mentality too.
Did you guys see the smile on Nick Castellanos' face on Saturday when he tripled? It was like the entire weight of the world was lifted off his shoulders. I know he went hitless in the series finale on Sunday, but maybe that gets him going a little bit. 3 hits on Saturday night. Have you guys seen better at bats for him? Is there any reason to be optimistic? He's going to Cincinnati this week. He had a great couple of years in Cincinnati. He's comfortable there. Yes, I mean, maybe this is the week. I don't know.
I feel like he's definitely getting closer. The track record has been too good to not think it's going to come. And Cincinnati, like you mentioned, give him a positive vibe, good ballpark to hit in. I just feel like it's really close for him. He's a guy, a couple good games and confidence will build, and I think he can ride that.
So I did a little bit of a breakdown on NBC Sports during the pregame on the game on Sunday today, and what was pretty cool about it was that one of the things that I saw with him was his lower half was really turned at his setup, so that he was almost had his his left hip was almost pointing towards the umpire. He was that far turned, and I felt like. Just like in any other hitter or pitcher, if you're going too far east-west, like rotationally, you're not staying behind the ball, especially as a hitter, you're not staying behind the ball and you're not working through the middle of the field. And that's one of the things that he does extremely well is drive the ball the opposite way. He's one of the better right-handed hitters to do that over the last several years. And that's why he's making the big money. But I think what I did in the breakdown was that over the last couple of games, he's not nearly as rotational. He's almost straight on now. And instead of going, this way to get his bat head and to get his body in position to make contact, there's no real margin for error. He's sort of going straighter towards the ball, working behind it and through it. And I just think his bats have been better. I don't know if that was by design. I don't know if K. Long, the hitting coach, was working on that specifically, but it's something that I really noticed. I mean, he's really twisted up before, and he seems a little bit more straight on now.
Well, it sounds like it was about a week ago. I talked with Kevin Long, and he said that they told him they stopped talking about chase rates and all that stuff. He said that he said it might have ended in spring training. I'm not sure when he's last been told about his chase rates, but it seems like that phrase has not been uttered nearly as much over the past couple of weeks. While we were talking about the rotation, and we talked about this last time, but now Spencer Turnbull takes a no-hitter into the 7th inning. And man, I mean, we know what's going to happen, right? I mean, but is there any? Do you guys have any other thoughts on how to handle this? And it's got to be Turnbull to the bullpen and Walker to start. I mean, Walker made his final rehab start today in Scranton, 6 1/3. 4 runs, 4 earned, fastball average 89.5. I don't know how much effort he was putting into it. I mean, he was kind of like a final tune-up, but
I think they got to find out about him, and why not sooner than later? He's ready. Find out, and you protect Turnbull a little bit because he hasn't pitched a ton the last couple of years, and he's still there. He'll help you as a long man in some way, shape, or form, and. All these guys are going to get the opportunity to contribute. It's just whether or not they actually do. So, all eyes are going to be on Taijuan. He's going to have to deliver a little bit, but I think he deserves that chance because 172 innings was really meaningful for that team last year.
Right.
Yeah, I think if I put my GM hat on, I mean, you got to give the guy a chance, as Jim said. And basically, at some point, it's going to become a performance-based thing. If he's not pitching well, in like 4 or 5 or 6 starts, you got to kind of give him a little bit of leash. And also kind of depends if the team's playing well. If the team's playing well and they don't, and he's eating up innings, then that factors in a little bit too. Okay. I do know, just knowing Dave Dombrowski, at some point, if he's not doing his job, Dave's going to make a change. Dave's not afraid, Dave and Rob Thompson. I mean, they're not afraid to make, and especially Dave is not afraid to, put the best guys out there. But I think he needs to get an opportunity to do that. I think he deserves it. There's a reason why they signed him to that contract, and and we'll see. We'll kind of go from there. It's Jim Fregosi used to say this all the time, man, and these things have a way of working themselves out, and I think this is going to be the case.
And as the Phillies go 8-2 at home, I think the Mets and the Braves are both on an 8-2.
Yeah,
8-2 burner heater. I'm sorry, a heater. That's your,
they're playing great, man. The Mets are really surprising. There's a Carlos Mendoza, the new manager there, is setting a totally different tone in the clubhouse. It's a different clubhouse now. I think their guys are sort of on the same page. They're playing good baseball. Starling Marte's playing well. He had a very poor, difficult year last year and some injuries. They're playing pretty darn good baseball, and I guess Lindor hasn't done a whole lot so far. I know they lost their catcher, which is a big one. That was a tough one for him. But hey, this is it's pretty exciting for the Mets fans. I mean, it's good, and it's good for the division. I mean, you would think that Atlanta and Philadelphia would be the ones, and at the end of the day, they probably will be. But it's pretty cool to see the Mets staying in there when even with Cody Senga not really pitching. He's hurt right now too.
I mean, the Braves they lose Sean Murphy, and Travis d'Arnaud hits 2 home runs each of the last 2 games. I mean, it's just like such a Braves thing to have all that incredible depth, and just they keep chugging along. Spencer Strider's not pitching. They keep chugging along, man. They find a way to get it done.
They're amazing.
They've got a great team. It's a very, very complete team. I think it's going to end up being a really terrific race, especially if the Phillies starting pitching continues to go as it is. It's going to be a hell of a race.
Do you think, opposing teams, the Braves, the Mets, other teams, the Reds, Phillies are going in to play the Reds. Do you think they look at the Phillies and go, wow, they're hot, their pitching staff is dealing, or do you think they actually say, well, look who they just beat up on? We talk about it that you can only beat the team that you're playing that night, but what about from a player's perspective, Ruben? Do they weigh that the fact that they've played weak opponents?
Honestly, it depends on the makeup of those players and the makeup of that team. If they're a confident bunch, they'll say, hey, you know what? We faced these guys before. We've raked them. I mean, we've done some damage against them. They're not, it depends on the whole mentality of the team and how confident they are, and, how confident, the manager is. It's just like the tone that they have. But these guys watch and they know. I remember there was a time, when there's certain players that I played with, when a guy was coming in town, I was like, oh man, I got no chance against this guy. I'm like, dude, I would look at it and I would go like, I was Greg Jeffries. Greg Jeffries, every once in a while, he have the tough, I can't believe it. I don't know if he was half joking or what the deal was, but I never wanted to ever succumb to the pitcher. I always wanted to say to myself, you know what, if he got me last time, I'm going to get him this time. And so I think it's a lot about the mentality of you got to have a little bravado, man. You got to have a little Dave Winfield in that box. You got to have a little Juan Soto in that box. Doesn't matter whether it's Dwight Gooden out there pitching or it's Molly Putz. I mean, you just sort of have to have the right mentality. I think it really depends on the makeup of the team.
Yeah, I wonder if the Reds are sitting there because they played them earlier this season. Man, they weren't even playing that great when we had them, and maybe the Rockies and the White Sox breathe some new life in. But it is funny though. You get I've seen this on my Twitter feed. People talking about, wow, they only beat the 2 worst teams in baseball. But man, you got to do that. Last season, only 8 teams finished the season with winning records against teams with winning records. So it's not like it's hard to beat the winning teams. You have to beat these bad teams, and they didn't go 4-2. They went 6-0, and that. As bad as they are, they did everything that they needed to do. Mm-hmm. But so this weekend, let's talk about these matchups here. Monday, Ranger Suarez versus Hunter Green. Tuesday, Christopher Sanchez versus Andrew Abbott. Wednesday, Spencer Turnbull, and probably his last start for a while. He could be back at some point versus Nick Lodolo. And then the series finale on Thursday, Zach Wheeler versus Graham Ashcraft. Should be a good series.
I wonder if Spencer Turnbull is just going to keep making it a little interesting with another beauty in Cincinnati. Just keep adding to the drama.
Is that it's got? Does that make things uncomfortable for Rob Thompson, or does he just know that? Listen, we have to do this.
Yeah, I don't think
it's
so.
not a big. Yeah, right.
I think he knows what he has to do. I think Spencer Turnbull probably knows why he was signed here and what role. And he, if nothing else, these good starts he's had, I think solidifies his place on the roster and on the pitching staff, and they know they have something there that can help in a couple different roles.
It was interesting.
It was cool to listen to him talk about, after his last start. He said, "Hey, listen, I'm just grateful I'm getting opportunities and I'm pitching well." And he knows. I mean, it was almost like his quotes were like, "I know I'm going to be back in the bullpen at some point, probably," but he's grateful to be able to have this opportunity and to pitch with this team. He loves his teammates. I mean, he said all the right things. I mean, obviously for him personally, we'd love to continue to take the ball, and you got to love that. And he should be a little bit pissed off about not, having that role taken away. But that's what you want out of the player. I mean, that's what you want. You want the fight. You want a little whatever and vinegar. But and you want that out of those players, and that's okay. But again, these things have a way of working themselves out, and it's just great. It's just a great signing, man. When you start thinking about the pro scouting people and the people that had the decision of bringing him in on this contract, I mean, he's sort of already paid for his contract with his contribution in 1 month, which is kind of crazy, but that's true. When you start thinking about it, breaking down, wins and losses and what it costs to win a baseball game and what the value of that is, he's already sort of paid for his contract in his first, 3 or 4 starts.
Ruben, got any memories of Cincinnati when you were a player? Play any big games there? Any good games?
You know what I remember about Cincinnati? I remember way back when I traveled, as a bat boy, traveling with the team. I remember witnessing. This is way back in, I guess it was Riverfront. Is it Riverfront Stadium?
Yeah.
Way back when, and thinking to myself and watching the bat boys, because I always keyed on the bat boys back when I was a bat boy to see how they did their job. Right? They always had 2 guys sitting, one ball boy and one bat boy right there. Dude, they were the fastest, quickest, best bat boys in the world. I mean, boom, everything was like clockwork. Boom, boom, boom. I was like, oh my God, I was in awe of them. And, they were just like robots. It was pretty darn cool. They did. I was like, man, I would never. And I think I thought to myself, ever since that moment, it was like set the tone for me. I was like, I'm not going to let these guys beat me. I'm going to show these guys what kind of bat boy I am. I mean, I'm serious, man. Everything was, back in the day, they had, George Foster and Concepcion. I mean, they had unbelievable teams, but they did everything just so by the book, man. It was just like clockwork, and that was the most impressive thing that I remember. The only other story I will tell is that was kind of funny was when it was a rumor that I was going to become the assistant GM of the team, and I was still playing. And I think David Weathers was on the mound. Ed Taubensee was behind the plate, and it was like, I don't know, the 8th or 9th inning or something like that. And I had a bad year that year, but boom, David Weathers comes in, and I punch a base hit or a double or something up the middle and scored. I drove in a run, and apparently Ed Taubensee was like screaming at the plate when that run scored. Like, I cannot believe the assistant GM just beat our ass. What the hell's going on here?
You were on the team in '98, right?
I was.
Do you remember in the old stadium, Mark Lewis was on the team?
Yes.
You guys signed Mark Lewis for 1 year. He was from Cincinnati. And his buddies were all sitting behind the dugout.
Oh, yes. And one of them fell into the dugout.
Mark Lewis is Todd. There's a big
true
they get in a fight. All his friends are getting in a fight, and one of them tumbles into the dugout like head first. And he's laid out on the dugout floor. And Rex Hudler goes over to him and says, "Dude, don't roll over. Your head is right next to a giant loogie." There's a big puddle of spit there, and Hudler's like keeping his head out of the puddle of spit. And it was such a fun story to write because Hudler is so colorful. His quotes are great. He's described, but Mark Lewis's buddies, one of his buddies, fell into the dugout during the game, and it was unreal.
Were they fighting each other or fighting somebody else?
I'm not sure there was a fight. One of them fell in the dugout. I thought he got hurt.
I think they were cheering for the Phillies because he was Mark Lewis's buddy, and it must have been against the Cincinnati guys. It was some kind of brawl, and he literally fell over the dugout roof and down into the dugout.
And Brookie, Bob Brookover, we're watching this from the press box and laughing, and we didn't know if somebody saw it. We were kind of laughing. We were looking down there, and Bob Brookover says, I come to a Reds game and a Jerry Springer show breaks out. And Hal McCoy from the Dayton Daily News used that quote in his lead of his story.
Hall of Famer, Hal McCoy.
Yeah, great Hall of Famer.
Yeah, that's so funny.
Another great Cincinnati story. Jerry Krasnick, our good buddy Jerry Krasnick, is covering the team for the Cincinnati Post. And during the Marge Schott era. And he writes a critical story about Marge Schott, which really wasn't hard to do. She gets pissed off about this story that Jerry wrote and sees him in the media lunchroom before the game, the media dining room, and throws his ass out. Won't let him have dinner. Throws him out of the media dining room. It gets better. Word gets down to the Reds clubhouse. They didn't like Marge very much, the players. Word gets down to the Reds clubhouse that Marge has thrown Jerry Krasnick out of the press dining room. Tim Belcher orders him like a cheeseburger and a slice of pizza, and he sends it up to the press box.
No way.
That is great.
That's funny.
Oh awesome. My gosh. I hope we get something that good this week in Cincinnati. Now nobody can fall into the dugout because they have the netting up. They got,
Yeah,
I think it's a great thing. The two cities that are great baseball cities. One is Cincinnati, and the other one's Baltimore. I think that they're enjoying some good young players coming through their systems. Yeah. I picked the Cincinnati Reds to win the Central Division this year, and I picked the Orioles to win the AL East. So, but it's cool to see the flavor of this city bounce back. I hope there's great crowds because this got a chance to be a really good series here. I know it's early in the season and it's on a early weekday series, but hopefully it'll be out there in droves.
Yeah, it should be a fun series, and you got to love. I think if you're a Phillies fan, you got to love the idea that Ranger gets the ball in the first game because first game can be such a tone setter.
Yeah, it's sure good. Yep, especially for the bullpen, right? They continue to save the bullpen even though they're rested.
Well, guys, thanks so much. Should be a fun week. We'll check back later this week. Thank you, everybody, for listening to the Phillies show. Until next time.
Smell you later, Ruben.
I'll be smelling you, Jim. Loving the logo.